Hello everyone, I am Dr. Maria Nodio from Nagaland University. Today I'll be talking about perception and attribution. These are two important concepts in organizational behavior. In simple words, it is how we interpret what we see or hear and then use the understanding to judge situation, people or groups. Perception is not just about what our eyes see, but how our brain makes sense of it. These illusions show that what we perceive is not always the same as what is actually there. Our brain can interpret the same visual information in multiple ways. The first image, depending on how you focus, you may see a man playing a saxophone or the outline of a girl's face. Second image, you can either see sailing ships or stone arcs. This shows perceptual set. Our past experiences or expectations influence what we notice first. The third image, you might see a woman's face or animals form like horses forming her hair. This illustrates how gestalt principles, how our brain tends to group elements together to form a whole picture. Now let us look at the factors related to the perceiver, that is, how we as individuals shape our own perceptions of others. Projection. Sometimes we see our own qualities in others. For example, if I'm hardworking, I may assume everyone else is hardworking too. This is called projection. Number two, mental makeup. Each of us has a mental framework or preset notions about people, events, or objects. So when we face a situation, our reaction is often based on this existing mindset rather than objective reality. Third is stereotyping. This is when we judge someone based on the group they belong to. For instance, assuming all engineers are introverts or all teachers are strict. Number four is the halo effect. Here, we form an overall impression of a person based on one striking characteristics. For example, if someone is very attractive, we may also assume they are intelligent and kind, even without evidence. Number five is the recency effect. Our perception is often influenced by the most recent event or interaction. So, therefore, it happens that if an employee recently made a mistake, we may forget all their past good works and see them as careless. Let's move on to the factors related to the perceived, which means the person whom we are judging. Number one, status of the perceived. Our perception often depends on a person's position or wealth. For example, a manager's mistake may be overlooked, while the same mistake done by a junior employee is criticized. Two, closeness with the perceived. How close we are to a person also affects our judgment. If we share a good relationship with someone, we tend to rate them more positively even if their actual behavior is negative. These factors reminds us that perception is not purely objective. It is influenced by a person's social standing and our relationship with them. Finally, let's look at the factors related to the situation. The situation or context plays a huge role in shaping our perception of someone. The same person can be judged very differently depending on where they are, what they are doing, and under what circumstances. For example, someone sitting in a five-star hotel may be perceived as wealthy, successful, or high status, but the same person, if we see him in a small roadside hotel, we might judge him as very differently, even though the person is still the same. Therefore, this shows that perception is not only about the perceiver and not only about the perceived, but also about the environment and situation in which the interaction takes place. Perceptual process. Number one, selectively perceive. We take in information through our senses, but we only notice what is important to us or what grabs our attention. For example, in a noisy room, you still notice when someone says your name. Number two is organize. Our brain sorts this information, fitting it into patterns or categories we already know. For example, seeing shapes in clouds or grouping people by similarity. Interpret. Finally, we give meaning to what we have organized. based on our experiences, culture, and mindset. In short, we notice, we arrange, and we give a meaning to it. Perception happens in four stages. Let's take the example of being in a meeting with your manager. Number one is receiving. First, you receive information through your senses. In this case, you hear your manager speaking, you see their body language, and maybe you notice lights on the screen. Number two is selecting. Next, you select what to pay attention to. Even though there may be slight conversations or your phone is buzzing, you focus on the manager's voice because it feels most important. Number three is organizing. Then our brain organizes this information in three ways. First is the figure ground. You make your manager's words the figure and the background chatter fades away. Grouping. You link related points together, like when the manager mentions budget targets and deadlines, you mentally group them as a part of work goals. Constancy. Even if the manager's voice gets softer or the projector light is dim, you still recognize the same message and the same leader. Interpreting. Finally, you interpret the meaning. You may think our manager is serious about meeting deadlines, or depending on your bias, you might feel encouraged or pressured. In short, we can say that we receive the message, select what matters, organize it into patterns, and interpret its meaning. Do you see a vase or do you see two faces? So, this is about figure ground perception. It's how our brain separates an object, which is the figure, from its background, which is the ground. Perception plays a vital role in organizations because it shapes how people behave. It helps employers to understand the task assigned to them, recognize the importance of those tasks, identify the preferred behaviors for completing tasks, clarify the role perceptions in the workplace. In short, perception influences how people interpret their jobs, responsibilities, and relationships at home. Now let's move to attribution. Attribution is the way we explain people's behavior. It is a process where we observe others and try to figure out why they act in a certain way. For example, if an employee misses a deadline, we may attribute it to their lack of effort or perhaps to external factors like too much workload. So, attribution is about judging causes behind behavior, whether internal or external. This is a simple explanation of attribution theory. When we see someone's behavior, we ask, why did they act this way? Internal cause, because behavior is due to the person's traits, ability, or effort. External cause, behavior is due to situation, environment, or outside forces. To decide, we use these three cues. Determinants of attributions are one, distinctiveness. For example, if I'm asking a question, does this person behave the same way in different situations? Okay, so if they act the same everywhere, which means if low distinctiveness, it is internal cause. But if they act differently in different situations, that is high distinctiveness, and that is external because of external cause. And for example, an employee is late. If they are late to every meeting, it's a low distinctiveness. We think it is just their laziness, internal. If they are late only to one specific meeting, high distinctiveness, maybe because of traffic or something situational caused it. Do other people behave the same way in this situation? We can ask in to understand this consensus. So if low consensus, others are not doing it, it is internal cause. If high consensus, everyone else is doing it too, that is external cause. For example, if only one employee misses a deadline, it's a low consensus. We blame the person internal as an internal determinant. If everyone misses the same deadline, high consensus, maybe the deadline was unrealistic or external influence. So perception is basically how we receive, select, organize, and interpret information. In organizations, it really matters because it shapes how we see tasks, roles, and even other people. Attribution is about how we explain behavior, whether we think it is caused by something internal, like the person's attitude, or something external, like the situation. And now, what we understand from this session is that two people can look at the exact same situation and perceive it very differently. That's why perception and attribution are so important in organizational behavior. That brings us to the end of this discussion on perception and attribution. Understanding these concepts is key in organizational behavior because how we perceive others and how we explain their actions strongly affects teamwork, leadership, and overall performance. Thank you.